Hello, everybody. It is here at the Colleges of Law. We are doing our post-game debate recap. My name is Dr. Matt Nehmer. I'm the president of the Santa Barbara Ventura Colleges of Law. I was the moderator for our October the 8th debate on Proposition 22. I'm thrilled to have back with us one of those debate participants, Ray Fuentes. Ray is the Skadden Fellow at the Partnership for Working Families. Ray argued for the no side of the proposition. And I should say that we did invite David Cruz from the League of United Latin American Citizens Council to join us as well. He wasn't able to make it today, so we just have you, Ray, but thrilled to have you and welcome back a couple weeks after the election.
Thanks so much.
Just wanted to kind of bring the topic up. It's been just over 2 weeks since the final returns came in. Here's what I'm seeing. I think the final numbers aren't in, but Proposition 22 fell short. Well, the yes votes, I should say, came in around 9.8 million or 58.7% of the total against the no side, which you argued, which was 6.9 million votes, just over 41%. Yep. And what I'll do is just to acknowledge you. You won our debate. I'm going to bring it up on the screen here. This was we had fun with our program. And you can see that we polled our audience before the debate even got started. And we had just 6% were in that yes, we had 22 in the no, and look at that number, it's 72% were undecided. We ran the debate. Ray, you were very persuasive. You can see the final poll here. We ended up with 27%, so that 6 went up. The no, though, went up significantly, that your side of the argument, and then undecided went down. So you certainly came through on the debate. But on the votes, once the votes were counted, the yes took it by a fair margin. What's just your surface analysis of how the vote, of why the vote went the way it did?
Yeah, I just wish more people had been able to make the debate. I think part of the issue, and I mean, I'm being facetious about that. I wish more people could have joined and had more conversations exactly like the one that we had with David. I think part of the conversation now is, retrospectively is really what happened. And I think the headline you can write for most of these conversations is that the company spent over $200 million to run an unprecedented and in fact, the most well-funded ballot initiative campaign in U.S. history to target messages directed at voters that I think in a charitable estimation really don't do a service to describing what the law was actually doing. And I think that's what our debate between David and I really, I think, helped illuminate was what Proposition 22 was actually intending to do, because the message that came from the yes side of the campaign was about protecting jobs, protecting flexibility, and they have different ways of arguing that point. But I think voters came into the voting booth having seen more of those yes messages because of the campaign funding, thinking that they were protecting workers' rights when, after you have a conversation with a voter, you describe to them what Proposition 22 is doing, it becomes very clear that Proposition 22 is not protecting workers' rights long term, or at least to the level that California law would provide.
And right, and the LA Times reported on this. You probably saw the reporting where they did do some, work with individual voters, and they did find that there was seemingly some perhaps confusion or understanding about what the yes vote meant. And I think to your point, it was a 10-to-1 was of the spend of the no, of the yes against the no.
Well, and it's not only that. I mean, the spending disadvantage is one thing, but the companies were also using really tactics that we hadn't seen before in other campaigns. They were using their email list of consumers and drivers. They were pushing in-app messages to consumers and drivers who were their employees under California law. And they were requiring, for example, Instacart, DoorDash shoppers to include Proposition 22 messaging and propaganda, flyers and stickers to talk to consumers as they were using the services. And so maybe in an unprecedented way, encouraging employees to engage in their preferred political speech. And I think that was a concerning element near the end of the campaign, but I think it all contributed to the fact that voters were seeing more of this yes message than the no message, and not really understanding the substance between the difference in their vote. And so, as you described, I think the LA Times did a good job of highlighting this, that voters were persuaded by the idea that jobs would be saved and that flexibility preserved. Yet, I think that's the opposite of what Proposition 22 is attempting to do.
So just two more questions before we wrap it up. The first is, where does the issue go next? What kind of organizing force carries on
Yep.
your side of the argument, and where does it move from here in California and beyond?
Yeah, in California, I mean, Proposition 22 again was about the issue of employee classification and employee benefits, but that conversation, the conversations about how these companies operate in California, what they can be doing in our local communities. There are a host of other issues that are unrelated to the employment classification issue that will continue. Environmental concerns, public safety, really, regulation that is important to preserve the rights of Californians, that can continue on. And nothing is going to stop these workers also from organizing and from collectively using their voices to say, what these companies are doing is really harmful to them and their communities. And I think that's one in California. And as we move forward under a Biden administration, we can clearly recognize that there's going to be a fight on the national level, and this is something the companies have telegraphed. But we know that the Biden administration, both Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, endorsed the no campaign and were opposed to Proposition 22. So it clearly indicates to me that they're going to be supportive of expanding workers' rights through federal law to the extent that they can.
And to that, one last question is more just about the California ballot provisions, that whole process. We should probably do a debate on that alone. I'll have you back for that. But it's a great example of the California Assembly passing a law that went through the normal channels of process and review, consideration, advanced, and then up comes Proposition 22 that overturned it, or for the most part, overturned a lot what came through the Assembly. Just what are your thoughts on how it works here in California? It is a little bit unique.
Yeah. Absolutely, and the courts have made it very clear, and precedents make it very clear that the ballot proposition process is to be jealously guarded by California institutions. And I think it's rightfully so that the people, when they genuinely exercise their will through the ballot initiative process, that you're getting something a little more pure, a pure distillation of their perspective. But when that becomes co-opted, I mean, I think there are very few voters who read, the 26-page new amendments, new statutes that were being enacted through Proposition 22. That really is the job of the legislature. And I think there's a philosophical question. The legislature should be involved in these sticky, hard policy questions that require a little more nuance and explanation than a yes or no vote. And so I think that's the unfortunate part of a ballot initiative process when you get into these really technical issues and they get boiled down to a couple of sound bites. I think it's the people who end up losing out in that process.
Well, thank you. That's all we have time for. Ray Fuentes, I just want to thank you again for joining us on our October 8th debate and just coming back and just sharing your reflections. This is all part of our larger effort here at the Colleges of Law to just be part of the public education process around these initiatives. Just want to thank you again and hope to see you back with us at a future debate.
Hey, thanks, man.